Hey, what's up? It's Kit. Time for another video. Today, we talk about gear ratios, all right? Line retrieval speeds for reels. Very, very important topic. And when I realized that I've been talking about techniques and then there's very specific line retrieve speeds needed for these techniques. I talk about it in fragments whenever I talk about combos, reels, and stuff like that. But there's no video of me actually explaining what these speeds are, why it's important. Bang, I cringed, I was like, oh gosh, you're talking about techniques and all this, and so we're trying to self-correct. But before we actually talk about that, let me give you an update of exactly what's happening now, because as of this moment it is 12:48 a.m. and this video was supposed to be made yesterday. Okay, it is October 13th. This was supposed to be done actually, sorry, not October, August. Okay, it was supposed to be August 11. Okay, because I always upload the day before, but the schedule these days, okay, is all over the place because I am renewing my residence visa here in the UAE, and new regulations, new requirements and all this, so I had to comply. So bear with me. It takes about 3 weeks for this whole process, so in the next 3 weeks it's gonna be kind of inconsistent. I'll try to be as frequent as I can. I'm not just gonna leave you guys hanging, okay? So just like this, I'm actually kind of just catching up, and then if I have time, I really want to go out and actually do some testing, and that's something that I really have to do pretty soon. So in between these chores, all right, hopefully. Now also, I want to update you about the talk show. So the fishing chat, as I call it, it's an informal nickname, but I've already sent out some invitations to people, and they're quite excited to be on board. So all that we need to do is just schedule. Now, the reason why I'm updating you is because it's like this. All right. So first and foremost, it will be kind of live because there is a delay. It's the software thing. So basically what happens is that if we schedule an individual, let's say he's from the States, so the guys in the States will actually see it kind of live because there is about a 15-second delay. All right. So the guys over the States would be able to ask questions, because although I am chatting with this guy via Zoom, I have the chat box open in one of my monitors, so I'd be able to read some questions like I did with KD. Okay, so that's very important. Now obviously, if I'm interviewing someone from Europe, the guys in Europe would be able to, and if I'm interviewing someone from Asia, it'd be live to the guys in Asia. And then if it's Australia, it will be the guys over at Australia that would be able to see it live and ask the questions. When I schedule, I'll post it in the community board, and then if you want to ask specific questions, just type them in the comment section there, so that we'd be able to ask our resource person, and they will answer your question for you. Obviously, if you're asleep, if you won't be able to make it, you're at work or whatever, it's going to be uploaded, so you're still gonna be able to watch the interview. All right. Now, topic at hand, very important, because it has a direct effect on your fishing, and a lot of people don't really understand. So that's why we're talking about this now. Also, keep in mind that a lot of people don't get this explained to them. So there's a lot of searches that happen on YouTube for this particular topic, okay? And no one, or maybe some, have explained it to a certain extent, but there's always the question why, okay? Now, aside from that, I'm gonna be throwing in like a very good tip for you guys. Listen, a lot of people want a reel, one reel to do multiple jobs. Now, the reason why there's different speeds for reels is only one: efficiency. Okay. Now, when it comes to Japanese fishing equipment and their technology and their techniques, you have to remember that they've actually invented or refined some techniques, and these techniques would require specific things, and this is why we have different ratios. Okay. Ease of use and efficiency, and literally like comfort when you're using. Okay, those are the three things that that will make your life easy when you get these reels in the right ratio. Okay, now learning the techniques that enable you to be efficient and then comfortable in fishing depend on this, the gear ratio. Okay, now rather than looking at the gear ratio, okay, which is like fine and everything, but see, gear ratio is actually very misleading. Okay, now when you're saying the gear ratio, it means that it is the ratio of one crank of the handle and this. So for spinning reels, it's this rotor that dictates the ratio. For overheads, it's actually the revolution of the spool. Okay, so why am I even talking about spinning reels and not talking about overheads? Okay, let me get one and then I'll show you. Now this is very important because a lot of people don't understand. And this is why we're talking about this using spinning reels. Okay. Now, this is a Studio Ocean Mark L75. The hallmark of this reel is that it has a very big capacity spool. Okay. This sucker holds PE8. Okay. Or 6 maybe. I forget what I put. I think PE6. All right. PE6. Now, if you look at the capacity of this, it would be sort of like this. This is Stella 14,000 with a Studio Ocean Mark 16,000 size spool. It'd be the same as this with the same line. Okay. Now, why? Well, here's the thing. This is an XG. Okay. It should actually tell you there. So this is 135 cm right there, gear ratio. This is gosh, it's not, oh, because I don't have it on autofocus, my bad. There we go. So see, XH. Now it's just the Studio Ocean Mark language for XG. All right, so remember, this is 135. Okay, now if you look at the 14,000 XG and then look at how much line it has retrieved. Okay, 14,000 XG. Okay, 134. This is 135. Okay, this a 14,000 on a 14,000 size spool is 134. If you didn't notice, okay, a 14,000 actually a smaller spool than this, which means the line retrieve speed on this is actually higher than 134. It is because spinning reels, and this is the reason why we're doing spinning reels as opposed to overheads. Spinning reels are inherently faster than the fastest overhead reels by a lot. Okay, now remember, I told you that this spool is equivalent to the size of this reel. They're literally kind of like the same as far as capacities are concerned. So PE6 on this, okay, and then PE6 on this as well. So apples to apples when I'm comparing. Now, this spool is closer to an 18,000 than it is a 14. So if you're looking at the 18,000 XG, I don't know if there is actually. And then exactly, nope. But if you're looking at the what do you call this, the 18,000 XG, the HG for the 18,000 is already 129. So an XG would be like 140 or something like that, you know, just to interpolate. So the and for this, again, this is like 100 yeah, it should be around 140 plus, but for this one, because it's a bigger spool, right, the line retrieve for this would be easily at least 140. So it's faster than this one. Okay, and this is a very important detail, because when you're looking at the PG, the lower end, you'll find that spinning reels are actually still taking in a lot of line, more than the overheads. Now for jigging, it would be kind of a disadvantage. Okay, so just take note, if you're using a spinning reel for your jigging, it's still a bit fast. Okay, and we'll talk about that in a bit, because the tip that I'm going to give you is actually pretty cool when it comes to this. And again, remember, whatever you're looking at, especially with the ratios, look at the line retrieve, the crank per the crank per cm. Okay, because that's a very important detail. Now, efficiency. It's all about efficiency. And each and every single technique that the Japanese are using have specific rods, specific reels, and even specific line to go with those techniques. Obviously, the lures are going to be specific to the techniques, because it is about efficiency. That's the top. Okay, efficiency and catching a specific fish with a specific technique. Whereas the West, you know, their way of doing things before they copied the mindset of the Japanese is very simplistic. One rod and reel for trolling, for bottom fishing, for anything. Okay, and it doesn't matter if you have like take for example, back in the day when they were fishing for rockfish, they were using shrimp flies and they were using trolling reels, and then they would use it sabiki style, and that was the mode for rockfish before. But now, you know, they've kind of copied like rods. Now you'll find slow jigging rods, okay, made by US companies, although they're, you know, probably, well, I'm not probably, but they hire a company in China to make for them, and then they try to copy existing Japanese rods, so they kind of adapted. You know, there are real companies like Accurate that are also marketing specific reels for slow jigging. Okay, now it is about efficiency. That is it. So you have reels for jigging that make it comfortable for the user. So ease of use, you know, so it's easy for users to use. Comfort, it's comfortable to use, so that when they are using the technique, they're not only efficient, but they're comfortable and it's easy for them. Again, it's all about efficiency. Now, when you're jigging, you're lifting constantly something heavy, okay? Power gear, specific to jigging. These are not my words, okay? You go to the Shimano website, and again, this is Shimano's language, and then you can find the same thing in Daiwa. Okay, so again, these two are standards. They have their own language when they refer to like ratios of the reels. Okay, so if you're going to, let's say, the Shimano website, you click on SW and then you click on lineup, you will find the reel models. And then under the reels, I'm looking at the 8000 PG, because the 8000, the new Stella, okay, has the PG, HG, and XG. Okay, you look at the description, it says power gear model, specialized for precise jigging. So I'm not the one who's saying that this is for jigging. Shimano is saying. Okay. Now, the PG, the reason why it's good is if you have weight at the very end of your line, okay, and you're dropping it down deep, remember that's water resistance plus 9.8 meters per second squared. That's gravity. So you're fighting against that. Okay. So your jig has to have, it fights gravity plus the water resistance. All right. So there's a lot of forces that's acting on that. Now, when you're going up a mountain on your bike, okay, if you're using big gears, my God, that's going to be a horrible, horrible time. What you need to do is switch to smaller gears so that it's softer on your legs. You know, you travel slow, but you're going up easier. And it's the same with power gear. Okay, so your reel, when you reel in, it's slower, but it has more torque. Now, if you go to an overhead, it's even slower. Remember, spinning reels are inherently faster. Okay, inherently faster than their overhead counterparts. So the slowest spinning reels are still going to be faster than the slowest overheads. Remember, okay, and the fastest reels in the market, they will be spinning reels, not overheads. Okay, so you're reeling and you're jigging. If you're doing that with an XG, you won't be able to lift your rod higher and make that jig move. You're gonna be going like this. Okay, as opposed to, see, even without resistance, this is just easier to do. Look, okay, it's difficult, it's stiffer. Now you go to the HG and it's a bit better, okay, but it's still hard. Now with the PG, I can relax, boom, okay, and it's easier. Now an HG, high gear model for wide range of situations. Now traditionally it was only PG and HG, so low gear, high gear, and then you know, as things evolved, new fishing techniques were discovered, and then they made the XG. But before, it was only the HG. So the HG is being positioned as something of a jack of all trades, but it's not really like that. Okay, so the HG higher gear ratio, you're looking at a faster retrieval rate. So going back to the table, okay, let's say we're looking at 8,000, okay, because we're looking at the PG, HG, and XG. So the power gear ratio is 4.8 to 1, whereas the HG has a 5.6 to 1, and the XG is 6.2 to 1. Conversely, the retrieve line, okay, the PG retrieves just under 100 at 92 centimeters per crank. The HG 107, and then the XG 119. And that's very critical information, because think about it this way: if you're just same distance, you take a lure, okay, you take a lure, stretch it out 100 meters, and then you have a PG reel on one side, in the middle is an HG, and then at the very end here is an XG. You wind it, same speed of winding. Obviously the XG is going to retrieve the line faster, but it's not only that, okay, it retrieves the line faster, but it also makes the lure more erratic. And this is the direct effect of the gears. And there's two, okay? There's the main gear and the pinion gear that rules the ratio, okay? The speed of retrieve. So imagine you're going fast, okay? 92 centimeters per crank. So it's going to be slower, okay? And then a little bit faster, HG. XG makes it more erratic, okay? Now, the HG, as we spoke about for jigging, right? The HG is good for things like poppers, okay? Or for crankbaits where you need a little bit of torque to make them dive, but also wiggle, okay? Things like minnow, lipped minnows that are designed to run deep, okay? For fat minnows like these, okay, that you want to go down deep fast, a lower speed ratio reel would probably do better, okay? Now, for minnows that have big lips, an HG would do better because it will make it wiggle faster. Now, if you put an XG on that, it'll be very difficult to crank. So these are instances on what you would use specifically, okay? Whoops, excuse me. Now, poppers like these, okay? Big faced poppers, perfect with HG. Perfect with HG, and this is what I'm using it for. So this is a popping reel I use together with my Hotz Jipang. Okay, this is a pair right here, and it works really well because it helps me move the popper, and because of the resistance that the lip gives, or the cup, okay, when I use an HG, I have enough torque to move the popper, okay, together with the stiff rod. Very important, okay? Now, if I use a PG, I would be cranking faster, okay? Just so I can eliminate the slack and make the pop, okay? Very important. Now, the XG, if you look at the description, okay, it is specifically mentioned here that is focused on plugging, okay? Now, a popper is a type of plug, but what they're talking about are stick baits like this. This is a floating stick bait, and this is like the basic stuff, okay? So when this was invented, when this was introduced before, floating stick baits were the rage. Now, why do you need an XG to work a floating stick bait? Because you're using controlled slack. And at first you might be like, oh, that's counterintuitive. But see, here's the thing. Here we go. This is the rod I use with the XG. This is an OSHA plugger. You can see there what it says there. Here. Okay. Okay, there we go. See? Flex limited. Now, what it is, for plugging, you have a soft tip, okay? And this rod was actually tested here in the UAE, which is pretty cool. So the Flex Limited, what it is designed specifically for stick baits like these, okay? This. Now, what happens is that when you are using floating stick bait, you need to leave a bit of slack. It takes a bit of practice. It's not easy. So you cast out, you reel in, put a bit of slack, and then you move your rod. And what happens is this thing floats like that. The slack makes it pull down, swim with an S curve, and then go up. And that happens really fast. And the fish respond to it just like that. So these reels were tuned to actually get the action out of the lure. Now, again, it is about efficiency. The Japanese, when they create something like a fishing technique, they study everything, and then in the case of the stick baits, especially for GT and it's the top three: GT, tuna, or sorry, GT, yellowtail, and tuna. Okay, bluefin tuna in that order. So the fishing for this, they're focused so much on GT and these three: GT, yellowtail, and tuna. It's crazy, you know. Jigging actually takes like a lower priority when it comes to these things. So they create, well, not create, but they discovered a fishing technique that is efficient for yellowtail, tuna, and GT. And they found that stick baits, especially in highly pressured areas, they need to be worked faster. So softer tips so that it helps the lure swim, and then a faster speed reel to take the slack, majority of the slack off. So instead of actually turning more, you just turn a little. That's it. It's just all about exerting the least amount of effort to get exactly what you need. Now, this is also the reason why Shimano has moved into the micro module gearing system, because it is a higher speed reel, which means that turning the reel will be very difficult, especially if there's load. But with the micro module system that they have, plus the Hagane body, which is like a rigid body, this is not an ad for Shimano. Okay, Daiwa has their own technology for that same thing, but traditionally you'll have like big teeth, okay, that enable the gears to be tough and mesh on itself to be able to transfer the power more efficiently. But Shimano has done like small teeth gear, but they're at an angle. Okay, so that's the micro module gearing, which enables it. Like, guys, this is nothing new, because guess what? This is what's applied to the gearing of your car. So literally they just moved and actually discussed this in the 90s in a forum, you know. Well, down the line, this is what they're going to do, and true enough, they done it. So basically, this is why even with load, it's easier for you to reel in. Okay, so Studio Ocean Mark has their own different technology. They utilize a load bearing, thrust bearing for that. Okay, so it's the same thing. Even if there's pressure applied, it's easy for you to crank it because of that thrust bearing, and that sits here. So Shimano did it with their gear. Okay, Daiwa did it with their gear as well. Studio Ocean Mark had a walk, what do you call this? A walk around in that regard with the thrust bearing. So, you know, with the load that the spool experiences, it shifts it towards a bearing that moves freely even with load. And it also becomes a sacrificial part, because that's the part that always needs to be replaced. Okay, so instead of like the gears break, it's that. So you kind of have to like be careful, especially with your drag setting, just so you would, you know, not experience the breakage and stuff. But for Shimano, it's the micro module system. So they done the XG, but they've also realized that because of the torque, they need to create a better gearing system to be, again, efficient. So as far as the ratios or the retrieve speeds are concerned, it is about efficiency, and that is it. This is why for PG, it's better for, say, applications where you need to lift stuff. Okay, bottom fishing, perfect. PG. Jigging, perfect. Live baiting for big fish, PG is awesome. When you're casting something that needs a fast presentation, plugs, let's say small cup poppers such as this, okay, XG works great. XG works great. HG for poppers, where, you know, you need the torque still, almost like a PG, but not. Okay, but you need the speed too. So if you are using more, let's say, jigs, okay, if you're casting spoons and stuff, XG is good. Okay, shore jigging, heavy shore jigging, this is your go-to. And the reason why I actually busted this out is because that's what I'm going to be using for the runner exceed, because I'm going to be testing out some stick baits and stuff. I'm actually filming, so just messing around and stuff, because I miss doing it. I'm gonna take you guys to a pier, abandoned pier. It's elevated, and then we're just gonna cast out, and maybe, I don't know, if there's a barracuda crazy enough to bite the lure, then hey. So that, okay. HG, if I'm using poppers, okay. Stiffer rods, poppers, okay. HG would be good. You could do a little bit of bottom fishing, or even live baiting with that as well, but it's still, because of how fast it brings line in, which is like faster than the PG. For live bait applications, I'd rather use a PG. That's it. Okay. Again, very specific to the use. Now, for me, this is how I use them. Okay. HG, popping. Stick baits, XG, and then jigging with a PG. Shimano recommends the same thing. Okay. Now, the tip that I want to give you. Okay. So there are people, especially when it comes to these things, because guess what? We're talking about Stellas and twin powers. So in Daiwa, that would be Saltigas and Catalinas, I guess. They're not cheap. So a lot of people, again, I would say this because a lot of people want to do more with their gear, more than just, let's say, PG for jigging. That's why a lot of people say, like, oh, I use HG for my jigging. Because guess what? At the end of the day, they don't want to buy more than one reel. So good that you'll have, if you can afford all these, if you're going into casting, you're going into jigging, and then you have stick baits and poppers, and you have the budget, you're a lucky man. But not everyone has the same thing. Okay, so a lot of people are going into this thing and they save money, and they're only able to afford one reel. What do I do? Do I choose jigging? Do I choose popping? Well, this is your lucky day. All right. Now, when it comes to popping or jigging for that matter, you have now, as far as Shimano's are concerned, okay? So you have 14,000, 10,000, and 8,000. Those are the three sizes of reels for casting and jigging, like for relatively big fish. All right. Now, if you want to do some casting with a PG, that's a miserable time, because guess what? It's not going to be efficient, right? You choose one over the other, and it's not going to be efficient. Now, if you choose like an HG, which is how Shimano actually positions things, it's kind of you'll fast to realize that it's not as easy as you think it is, especially if your technique isn't perfect. Okay, again, I've demonstrated, even with just air, no load or nothing. Okay, you can see that it's very easy. You're not exerting a lot of energy or effort to do this. Okay, that's a PG. Now you go to an HG and you'll find that it's kind of more difficult. It's a bit more cumbersome, but it's possible still. And guess what? I have good technique. Okay, a lot of people that are watching this, they probably don't. So just doing this, okay, you can see that I'm doing quite well. Now, if there's load, trust me, I'm not gonna be able to swing it like that. Okay, it's going to be like more like this. Now you go to an XG, and then it's difficult. See, I could still do it, but trust me, I'm actually hurting here. Okay, because it's just not efficient. Now, if you're using an HG for jigging, yeah, Okay, XG and jigging, no, just don't. Okay, now if you're using PG for casting, and then what happens is that you're going to be reading faster and all this. But here's a shortcut. Now, this is why I'm telling you to always look at the retrieve speed more than the ratio. Okay, because a lot of people are saying like, oh, ratio, you know, we look at the ratio, and then after that you'll go, uh excuse me, looking at the ratio, and then you'll say, you know what, 4 to 1, 6 to 1, and all this. To me, that kind of doesn't make sense. All right, now look at 14,000 PG. All right, that's 4.9 to 1. All right, now remember that when you are popping, jigging, uh, stick baiting, you're looking at 8,000, 10,000, 14,000. Okay, 20,000 and 30,000, 18,000. That's too specialized, and for most people, you're not going to be using that. It's just too freaking specialized. Now remember, when you're jigging, and uh, when you're jigging, especially, the weight of the reel and the overall system is something that you need to consider. So 14,000 would be it. Okay, you're looking at the 14,000 because it's good value for money. You have size. Okay, you have size, you have a bigger spool, and guess what, a bigger spool will give you better casting distance. So if you look at the what do you call this, the speed, okay, the line retrieval speed. Okay, now 14,000 PG. All right, 14,000 PG, you have 106. Now if you look at the 8,000, okay, 8,000 HG, guess what the retrieval speed is? That's 107. This is an 8,000 HG versus a 14,000 PG. A 14,000 PG is 106 centimeters. And this is why, if you want a reel that can do some jigging and a reel that can do some casting, especially with poppers like these, okay, so you can have two, but you can't have three. Right, you can use stick baits, but then, you know, it's not as efficient, but you could still use it, because guess what, 106 is still not as bad as, like, you know, 94. Okay, so instead of actually looking at an XG or an HG 8,000 or 10,000, get yourself a 14,000 PG, and that is probably the most versatile size of all the Stellas. Or I mean, you can apply this onto like other reels as well, not just the Stella. Obviously, even a twin power, or even a Saltiga or whatever, but whatever is, you know. But you look at the line retrieve speed, and you can see this very good example for this, the PG Stella 14,000, 106 centimeters. That is 1 centimeter difference to an 8,000 HG. Okay, that is a very, very good thing to know, which means that you can have a reel, okay, that is good for jigging, good for casting. You can even cast jigs with these, you know, and you can work them, you know. You can have two rods. You can have like a popping rod, similar to the Hutch G-Pang, okay, which you could use, and then you could have like what do you call this, a normal spinning jigging rod, which I have somewhere here. It's like a Game Type J. Here. Oh no, it's not here. But I have a Game Type J, okay, that would fit that if that's what I wanted. So one reel, two systems, good for the budget. All right, so that's the big tip. Again, look at the retrieve speed. There's only a 1 centimeter difference between. Yeah, so instead of actually getting something HG that will make you, I don't know, jig uh, like an 8,000 HG, let's say, it's going to be uncomfortable. Trust me, it's going to be uncomfortable jigging it. But with this, boom. Now, another tip that you could actually do to extend it even more. Okay. Now, if you look at the 14,000 PG, okay, and then an 8,000 HG, 18,000 HG is 129 centimeters per crank. This spool is actually 16,000. Okay, so let me show you a 14,000 spool. Actually, I don't have the 14,000 spool, but the, what do you call this? I have it outside. But anyway, the spool is bigger for this. I have an 8,000. There, this is an 8,000 size spool. If you could see, this 18,000 is 16,000 is actually pretty big. Okay, you could see the difference in diameter. So this is closer to an 18,000 than it is a an 8,000 or even a 10,000, right? Because it's bigger. 14,000 spool is actually a bit smaller than this. Now, why does it matter? But guess what? A bigger spool will give you a lot more line wrapped. Okay, so a bigger spool makes your reel even faster, which means that this PG right here, okay, will be closer to 129 centimeters per crank. So I have effectively increased the speed of the reel just by changing the spool into a bigger spool. Okay, now, guess what? If I take this off, and I put the 8,000 spool on this one, you know what happens? This reel reduces the speed to 94 because that's the spec right there. This is an 8,000 sized reel. Just by increasing the spool, I increased the speed. So the 14,000 PG is the same sized body as an 8,000, at least for this model right here. So imagine, all it is actually a bigger spool. So it's the same ratio, but it's a bigger spool. And before you know it, I could actually do something else. So be cognizant of this. Okay? Be cognizant of this. And this is why I haven't upgraded my Stella, or my Twin Powers and Stellas, because they're all in the generation where I could use the 8,000 spool with the 14,000 and then aftermarket 16,000 Studio Ocean Mark. Now you can change the spools only in the 10,000 and the 14,000 because they changed the rotor in a previous model. Okay, so that's it for this video. If you have what do you call this? If you have questions, drop them in the comment section. Alrighty, and we'll discuss. I have a lot on my plate, guys, so I haven't been answering the questions and the comments, so I apologize for that. There's just a lot of going on, and plus the more videos we make, the more comments, and it's very difficult to actually keep up. So yeah, eventually I'm going to be answering them, so don't worry, I'm not ignoring you. I'm actually reading the comments, and so some of them are quite nice, very kind. So thank you very much for all the comments. So keep commenting, liking, and sharing the videos. Very important, guys. Especially videos like these when there's a lot of people that kind of don't understand. I hope the tip, especially the tip, will actually open your eyes to the possibility of actually buying the right reels and making it comfortable for you, not just for your jigging, but also something that you could use for your casting. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people haven't thought of this, you know, and this is why I always say, I don't know, it's more than one video that actually say when you buy reels, look at the line retrieve specs instead of the ratio. It's more than one. This is not the only video where I actually said that. Before we go, I'd like to thank all the members, new and old. Thank you very much. Now, membership, support this channel, support me directly so I be able to make a lot more videos like these, which are very important, not just for you, but for guys that are starting out. Alrighty, that is it for this video. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Class dismissed.